Hello, today we are going to talk about the fifth and final part of this book series called To Hell and Back Again, France 2009 2024, My Survival Story. So we are going to start to read about the foreword of this final book. In this part, I will talk about how I made it after I was released, after almost 16 years in prison. I will talk about my experience as a homesteader and survivalist, things we tried that did not work, things we tried that worked, where we failed, what we did right and what we did wrong, and how we successed. And sadly, in the midst of this, my family was raised by the police and were falsely accused of planning a terror attack. We were slandered massively by the mass media and politicians, who with criminal intent had used their power over the police against us for their own ends. I will filter talk about all the consequences and this, including a trial against me in a court in Paris, problems with social service, and much more. The topic of bursum will come up too, and I will explain how that was a problem as well after my release. When I call it my survival story, this hints at my story as a survivalist and homesteader, but sadly, it also fits into the rest and how it overcome the many problems this world sent in my direction. Most of it is related to the fact that I was and I am a dissident in Europe. In spite of all of this, I made it. I survived mentally and physically. So this is my survival story, and I hope the last part of my autobiography, Varg Vikernes, June 2024. So this book starts with this interesting and very resume forward about the total information of this book. Then he talked about his change name from Christian Vikernes to Louis Cachet. Then he explained about the Norwegian social service are different to the French social service. That was one of the reasons he moved from France. Also, about the jail time after his release in prison, he just pretend to follow the protocol to walk in line. This kind of social service are very serious, and they want that citizens, it not matters where your country are, but citizens must be, follow the rules, follow the protocol that he told in this part of the book, and walk in line. So don't get in trouble with the Norwegian social service, also the French social service. Friends to me and anonymity. I actually have always valued anonymity a lot. He's very specific about this topic because, as you probably remember, he was very famous due the social media in Norway, due the facts and the time that happens these black metal events, and the church burnings, and also some crimes that you probably know in the past. He continued talking about that Norwegian is very expensive and not being allowed to make money or own anything is kind of impractical. So this is very interesting that as Norwegian citizen born and raised in Norway say that Norway is expensive. So if he thinks that Norway is expensive, what us foreigners could think about Norway, that if the country is really expensive for their own citizens, how expensive will be for people that is from another continents, So it's really interesting topic. Several record companies wanted to release the new albums, but they had been threatened by people with much influence and power in the industry. His music project was boycotted. So after he was released from prison, he was looking for to start to reactivate or continue to releasing some of his music, but unfortunately they have some kind of issues because some people that are the big bosses of the music industry, they don't want to support a criminal. In fact, living in France will indeed be cheaper than living in Norway. So this is a really interesting fact if you are planning to move to Norway or if you have the option to live in France. So this is a really interesting economic information. So then we are going to read this another interesting part. And this is where I want with this chapter. I was released from prison, all right, and I studied when in prison, finished high school, took several technical high school courses, and at the end went to the university, but I knew nothing of value. I had no useful knowledge, no skills, no real life experience. I was basically still 19 years old as I had been when I was first thrown in the prison, and I poorly educated and inexperienced 19 years old at that, and in a world that had changed dramatically since then. When still in Norway during leaves, I had to learn how to make a phone call with a cell phone. I had to learn how to use a credit card. I had to learn how to create a Gmail account. I didn't know anything about anything normal. I was basically helpless and useless, and in my late 30s already. Sure, I knew much about mythology, about our pre-Christian heritage, about history, about language, and some other theoretical subjects. And yes, I had some experience from childhood, modifying my mob, driving a boat, using a saw and a hammer, fishing, skiing, and other basic things. But by and large, I was indeed terrible, unskilled, and useless. That is how I started out, really, as an adult. I had to learn everything useful on my own, starting in my 30s. So this is probably a very dramatic situation for him, because if we read those words, we can saw that he lost almost 10 years of his life because he don't know how to do some kind of regular things that we do in our regular life or daily, if we can say that. Continue with his history. He talked about that he gets a new house in France with goats, rabbits, ants. In 2013, his wife, Marie Cachet, started and attending a rifle club to obtain a hunting license. Then he described the situation when the police arrived to his house and detained him and his wife because of a special situation of planning some kind of terror attack, confiscated the guns, the ammo, and the policeman asked to Varg about an email address called a wolf's chain, in English, wolf's lair, claiming it was him. The next day, his wife, Marie Cachet, was released from prison. As French politician went out in the public claiming his police he stopped a massive terrorist massacre and they, Varg and Marie, were evil right-wing terrorists. Lol. Some connection about at that time because of the situation of the Utoya Island in Norway with this guy Anders Breivik manifest. So it was kind of a situation that it was not comfortable for any of them. You want something, but you have to settle down with something less, something inferior, something worse. This is a very interesting reflection that he creates because from his point of view, Varg thinks that you don't want to have big aspirations in life, you need to be humble because of the situation of the economic development of the countries. Things right now are really expensive, so you don't want to have the right to have a dream of a big house or a nice car because you can afford it. So it's a really quite interesting reflection. The trees and the bushes that he plants in their property die several years after. So, as we probably know or we remember in the Thulean Perspective YouTube channel that he owned several years ago, he started to tell us about to be a self-sufficient person and to start to plant some of these kind of trees or specific fruits in our own properties if we live in the countryside. Then he said that Mother Nature will return the balance, recreate the harmony there, and heal the land. When we destroy our lands with modern agriculture, it takes time to heal them, to get them back to what they were. And that is why we, on our property, is finally starting to see changes here. Sure, we have learned a lot and know better now, but the changes mainly comes because much time has passed and the things we did 8 or 9 years ago are finally making a difference. So it's a really interesting reflection about this kind of situation that they have, you know. The less attention you draw to yourself, the better. If I could change one thing in my life, it would be that I would like back my anonymity. I would have wanted back the ability to be completely unknown and invincible to most people. I tried to get that back by moving to France, by you know how that went. So this is a very reflexive part because as I told later or before, he wants to not to be like a famous person in Norway, so that's the reason why he moved to France, to have a low profile, if we can say that, because he enjoys to be just is like a simple man in a countryside with his regular father with her kids and his family, and he don't want any kind of mass media attention. Then he continued to talk about solar panels, gasoline cars, and the change or the transformation of gasoline cars to electric cars, also washing machine, fixed car problem solutions, and then he said that the thing is water is life. Water, soil, and sunlight. So whatever you do, try to keep as much of it as possible on your property. So this is kind of advice. Then he talked about dealing with infections with some food products, and he affirmed that the forest is a pharmacy. Let's continue with this interesting reading. Many talk about building community and seek out to find like-minded individuals in context with survivalism. And I see it, you can only ever really trust people you are in family with, and not always even them. People you grew up with and people you went through extreme situations with, like a war. So I see building a tribe is about family first of all. Find a nice wife that looks like you and have many children with her. Then eventually your children will marry individuals from other families, and either if they are girls become part of their tribe, or if they are boys stay in your tribe and raise more children there with their wives. Sure, you can include in your tribe some guy you grew up with and know in and out, and who has again and again proved his loyalty to you. In that sense, going to school with people you grow up with is to a large degree the same as going through war with people. And you can include some guy you know in and out because you served with him in a war zone, and 3-4 know him in and out. But others, no. There is no reason for you to trust others. There is no reason for others to be loyal to you and your tribe. They each pose a threat to your community. If something happens, they will think about their own survival, not about the survival of you or your children. They will gladly betray you to ensure the survival of themselves and their families. They will be willing to sell you out without a blink. Maybe not sure, I agree, maybe I am even mostly grown here, but who can you tell if you can trust them or not? Did you grow up with them? Did you go through hell with them? If you did not, then you cannot tell. It is that simple. Better safe than sorry. Again, we are left with the fact that time is important. Take your time, build a proper, solid, and trustworthy family. Raise your kids well, educate them well, of course, with homeschooling, and expand from there. Grow into a large family and ultimately to a tribe. You cannot change from an ignorant and unskilled civilized man to a wise and skilled barbarian overnight. You cannot change from hyper individualism. You cannot change to tribalism overnight. And likewise, you cannot change a former agricultural land into an edible forest overnight. Things take time. Smart yourself with patience. Again, generally speaking, I think it's good to always assume the worst and always prepare for the worst. It is always better to be safe than sorry. So this is interesting reflection about, because human beings always think that everything will be all right, but unfortunately, with the social situation or the economic situation or the daily situation of the world, we need to be prepared for the worst, because if you are prepared for the worst, maybe you can be surprised with good things or a nice situation that happens into your life. So I am agree with this point of view. Then continue with this review of this book, My Survivalism Story, from 2009 and 2024, for the book series called To Hell and Back Again from Varg Vikernes. I'm going to read another part from this, So he suggests that buy a property in the countryside and start turning into an edible forest ASAP. The sooner the better, because that will take time. So this is a good advice for all of us that we are very, tired about to living in big cities and to dealing with a lot of situation problems, and it's really pain in for every single day that we need to being in troubles, and we don't want this kind of situation. So it's better for you if you move to the countryside to have a simple life, to enjoy the nature, to enjoy the silence, to be far from crowds of people in your life. So it's a good option to continue and to enjoy your own life. So I am agreed to buy a property in the countryside too. So then he started to get some tips about to preparing for a nuclear disaster, and he talk about he bought some books, some Lego or RPG games to deal with the time when if you, for example, the internet fail, or you don't have electricity in your place or in your house, so you can read a book, you can play with some Lego sets, or also you can play some role play games with your family and friends during this kind of crisis, if we can say that. Also, then he said that he bought some kind of bees to create some colonies with these insects in their house with his family. And then we are going to read the final part of this book. To end on a positive note, let us talk a bit more about children. Not matter what you do, surviving is meaningless unless you plan to have or already have children, or unless you have family members who have children and your survival can contribute to their survival somehow. Individuals die, but a tribe can live forever, and just like we are our ancestors, will become our descendants. The world we build for our children will be the foundation for the world that we will be reborn in the future. Either fully as our own descendants or partly as the children of the people who were the most like us, the children of individuals from our own race, people who look like us. As I see it, everything revolves around this, building a future for our children and the children of others who look like us. The best way to do is to raise them well and to educate them well, and to also protect them from the ills of this world for as long as we can, without leaving them ignorant regarding the nature of those treats. You might think it is better to just let your daughters be raped, and that way let them know that walking around alone is dangerous in this day and age. But I disagree, and I think that not allowing them to walk around alone and warning them about the dangers of this is better. When they finally become adults, they will not be broken mentally and physically and will still be fully aware of this risk. You might think it is better to expose your children to violence, drugs, and porn by sending them to public school so that they get a real feel of life today. But I disagree. It is better to shield them from this as long as they are children, and then while grew up warn them about this and instill in them a healthy antipathy towards all such things. No child has ever taken harm from not being exposed to rape, violence, drugs, and porn. We, read this, and I survived in this modern world, and frankly, we grew up in what can only be described as an internationalist cesspool, filled to the brim with degeneracy, filth, poison, and lies. If you read about survivalism, if you read this book, you are probably one of those who avoided drawing in that pool and instead tried to surface and get out. And I think I managed to get out, but even if I did, and if you did, we still swam and that cesspool for some time and waded through a sea as much before we got out and walked away with a stench. We were born into that cesspool. We can make sure that our children will not be cast into that like we were. We can do this for them, and even if we are egotistical, we should want that because we will come back to this world via them. We can heal the land that ruined by modern agriculture. We can heal the spirit of our peoples that was ruined by up to those thousand years of Abrahamic insanity. We can heal a race polluted and degraded by civilization, internationalism, and Abrahamic cultivation of weakness, impurity, stupidity, and ignorance. We can heal our families and ensure the purity of our descendants. There is no other way for us to survive in the long run. So that's the final chapter of this book, the ending of the autobiography from Varg Vikernes. Very interesting topics, very interesting point of views, some kind of good advices for us so we can take and to put on in our lives. Thanks for watching this video. Thank you very much for all the support that you do. To all the people that enjoy the book reviews, a big salute for you. And we will continue to review another books or maybe another albums or music maybe in the future. Don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to thumbs up, like this video, and share with your family and friends. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next video.